Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Global Education's virtual expo. We are just going to wait a couple of minutes just for everyone to log on, then we'll jump right into it. Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Global Education's virtual expo this evening. And with us, we have our university partner, the University of Exeter. So we are an authorized education agency that represents the University of Exeter. We assist with your whole application to the university. We assist you with your student visa, accommodation, and your personal statement, to write your personal statement assistance, and everything to get you from South Africa, Zimbabwe to the UK, to the University of Exeter. Please feel free to pop in all your questions in the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen. I'll sit on there and answer you, or I'll refer you to the Q&A section at the end, and Taylor will answer all your questions. So handing over to Taylor, he is the representative from the University of Exeter.
Okay, excellent. Thanks very much, Christina. And thanks everyone for joining. It's really good to be able to talk to you. I'd much prefer to be talking with you in person, but that's not possible. So this is the next best thing, and I'm delighted that we can do this virtually in any case. So also thanks to Global Education for having me along. So really, I think the important thing Christina's touched on there from this webinar is that you make sure you ask any questions that you have of me. I'll be very happy to answer any questions you have throughout the presentation or at the end. I'm going to hopefully cover a lot of the areas that you'll be thinking of in advance. I'm going to cover those throughout the presentation. So I'm going to be speaking for around 30 minutes, maybe a bit less, maybe a bit more. We'll see how I go. But as and when you think of a question, pop it into the chat, and I'll answer it. And if I don't know the answer, I'll certainly find it for you and get it through to you. Just to introduce myself to start with, so my name's Taylor. I'm the International Officer at Exeter for Sub-Saharan Africa. And yeah, I'm here to explain a bit about what the University of Exeter is like in the UK, and talk about what our offer is. What can we offer our students? We'll look at a lot of the sort of common questions you might have, and also some sort of new things and things you might not have heard of before, hopefully. So yeah, we'll make a start. Just to note as well, there's a QR code on the screen now, and there's one at the very end as well. And so if you're interested in studying with Exeter, just scan that, and it'll bring up a sort of web form that you can fill out, and it'll give you an email from me, and then we can be in touch. Obviously as well, Global Education are here to help you, so please contact Global Education with any questions you have at any point as well. Let's go into the first slide. I want to give you an overview really of the university. There's a lot of important selling points and sort of key points about Exeter here, and a couple I think are more important than others. I mean, I want to highlight the fact that the University of Exeter is a Russell Group university. If you're not quite sure what the Russell Group is, the Russell Group is sort of leading 24 research intensive universities in the UK. It's kind of similar to like the Ivy League in America. They have that sort of brand there. The Russell Group is the UK's version, really. One thing that I want to highlight from this slide as well is that University of Exeter has over 27,000 students from over 150 countries. So, for a relatively small city, Exeter's got an excellent spread of students from across the globe. We'll look a bit later on at sort of student numbers from South Africa, Zimbabwe, and also international students. But just to highlight there, we're a really international university. It's something we're extremely proud of. You would have had a look at all of the other sort of stats there, and we'll talk a bit more about a couple of them as we go along. Forgive me as well if I don't answer your questions in the chat as we go. I can't see them at the minute, so Christina will work to get those to me at the end. We'll answer all of them at some point. For those of you who have absolutely no idea where Exeter is, don't worry, you won't be the only ones. There's a lot of people in the UK who have no idea where Exeter is. It's not got a massive Premier League football team, so we're not on the map as some of the other larger cities in the UK. And you can see where we are there on the right-hand side in the UK. I mean, we're in the southwest of England. We're about 2.5 hours away on the train from London. So many of you might have been to London before. And yeah, 2.5 hours away on the train, the average train. I mean, the quickest train is 2 hours and 6 minutes. And that will take you to Exeter. We have, as I'll show you in a moment, a campus in Penryn, even further southwest, about another 2-hour drive from Exeter, 2.5-hour train. And we'll look at that in a moment. So we've got three sort of main sites, 3 main campuses. And let's look at those now. So the Stratum Campus, this is in Devon. It's our largest campus. We have about 18,500 students studying on this campus. Yeah, a range of subjects offered here. Our broadest range of subjects are offered here. Everything from Arab and Islamic studies to psychology, to English, business, lots of different subjects available. I won't list them all. You can see there from the image, everything's in one place. It's what we call a campus university. So unlike some universities, which would be referred to as city universities, which will have many buildings spread out across the city, Exeter is a campus university. So everything all in one place: accommodation, sports park, cafes, bars. There's a nightclub on site. Yeah, you can see on the outskirts there some of the student accommodation blocks. One is actually a building site in this picture, but since then it's been built, and we'll look at that in a little moment. We've also got the Penryn Campus, which is in Cornwall. So it's the one I said is a bit further southwest. You can see the map there on the bottom right. This is a really unique campus in the UK, and there's a couple of reasons for that. This is the only campus in the UK where 2 universities share the same campus. So on this campus, the Penryn Campus, we have the University of Exeter and also Falmouth University. Now, students on this campus will have chosen to study on the Penryn Campus. You can study a number of subjects here that you could also study at the Stratum Campus. And those are programs like business, politics, etc., history, English. You could choose either campus. We'll find that a lot of subjects at the Penryn Campus have a real focus on sort of sustainability, the environment, green futures, the green agenda, really. And that's reflected in the modules that are offered within the programs there. There are also programs at the Penryn Campus which can't be studied at the Stratum Campus. And those are programs like animal behavior, zoology, marine biology, environmental engineering, mining engineering, all very much suited to the environment down there. In Exeter as well, about a 20-minute walk away from the Stratum Campus is our St. Luke's campus. For those of you on the call who are interested in maybe studying medicine, medical sciences, this is where your campus would be. Again, it's in the city centre of Exeter. It's a smaller campus. There's actually about 4,000 students studying on this campus. But yeah, that's our sort of second campus in the city of Exeter. When you're thinking about universities in the UK, many of you rightly will be thinking about league tables. I think it's one of the key things you should look at, certainly alongside probably the most important thing: what's the city like? What's the university? How can I feel myself living there for a few years? But this sort of details some of the rankings for Exeter. So, top 20 in the UK for the last 10 years, 12th at the moment in 2 of the largest UK league tables. And then some of the global rankings there as well, consistently in the sort of top 100. You can see in the last 10 years, 10 years ago, 11 years ago in 2010, we were ranked 259th in the QS World Rankings. That's now up to 164th. what I'm not going to do on this slide is bore you with lengthy details about the exact history of Exeter University. I just want to sort of show you on a map, really, our long history as a university. And there's a couple of points that are probably worth highlighting as part of that. Now, you know, about 70 years ago, the university was awarded sort of full university status. Queen Elizabeth came to the campus back then, well before my time to open the campus up, open university, which is obviously a very big moment for the, in the university story, as it were. Far more recently, so in 2012, the University of Exeter joined the Russell Group, which is an excellent accolade and one that we're very proud of. And it's also the same year. You can kind of see this big blurry building here. This is the sort of focal and most central point of our Stratum Campus. It's called the Forum. So we've got the library, the student information desk, large lecture theatres, etc., cafes. But that was opened again by Queen Elizabeth in 2012, and you can see the pictures there of that. Again, really important moment, I guess, in the university's history. In 2015, 6 years ago, we were for the first time ranked in the top 100 in the world as a university. And in 2017, we're one of 8 universities in the Russell Group in the UK to achieve the Teaching Excellence Framework, or TEF Gold Standard, and that was the most recent sort of assessment of the quality of teaching in universities in the UK, done in 2017. And we're, as I said, one of 8 universities in the Russell Group who achieved the gold standard there, to really reflecting the quality of teaching. When I'm talking about quality of teaching, I think it's really important that we talk about research. You might be thinking, how's that relevant for me as a prospective student of Exeter? Well, actually, research is a really important part of a university, and without key research, then the quality of your teaching perhaps might not be where it would want to be. So we're really proud that as a leading Russell Group university and the UK's fastest growing research university, the quality of our research has a direct impact on the way that our students are learning. They're really often learning from academics who are at the forefront of publishing new knowledge in their given field. And you can see there some of the key sort of research strengths at university, and you'll notice that many of them are sort of leading global issues to do with the climate, for example, healthy aging, very key, dementia research, clean growth, etc. I mentioned that we're the UK's fastest growing research university, so it's best to sort of back that up with some statistics. And you can see on this slide that in the last 7 or 8 years, we're the Russell Group University with the fastest growing sort of capacity. And what that means is we've had the largest growth in the number of research staff at any Russell Group university. And as I said, that increase in research capacity has direct impact on the quality and the quality of teaching that students are able to receive. Something I think is a really important point when you're looking at universities. I know many of you might have some questions at the end about sort of how the university have been dealing with COVID-19 in the UK. I don't want to dwell too much and spend too much of your evening talking about it. I just want to show you just some images really of what the university looks like in the past year, really, as we've adapted. With many other UK and indeed global universities across the world adapting very quickly, moving learning online. Back in the autumn, we're in a blended learning model with some face-to-face teaching, and we're hoping that'll be coming back in early March, and we're waiting for the UK government on Monday to tell us a bit about how we might be able to do that. But you can see there some of the things that we'll be dealing with. The bottom image in the middle shows a sort of a large marquee there, and that's really highlighting that Exeter, our campuses, are some of the most open spaces and green spaces in the UK for university campuses. And that's afforded us a really good opportunity to extend our learning spaces. So we've got about 17, 18 of these marquees across our campuses, all heated with Wi-Fi, and just expanding the study space that our students can utilise in order to study effectively in very challenging times. This very short, quick image just to show the sort of rates of and local authority rates of coronavirus in the UK at the moment. Exeter is in the southwest, and you can see as it's not as populous or densely populated as some of our larger cities, there's relatively speaking low presence of the virus in the county, in Devon, in and around Exeter. Also at the moment, students, we have many of our students on campus at the moment, those students studying things like medicine or subjects such as engineering that require lab time, and all of the programs that require accreditation. All those students are on the campus. And in order to do that safely, the university have launched a very effective testing system, testing strategy. Students are able to access a test twice a week at the campus. I was actually working on the campus yesterday. In order to do that safely, I needed to get a test. So I had a test at the university, which has adapted its sports hall into a mass testing centre for students. And there's some of our current students who have been involved in that, and really giving a testament as to the importance of testing and how that can help us come out of the restrictions as quickly as possible. And hopefully you would have seen some positive news coming out of the UK about how that might be possible in the coming months. Fingers crossed. On that note, I think it's important to talk about student support. It's a key part of our university sort of philosophy. We're very keen to not just bring you guys to the university and once you're here, leave you alone. We're very keen that you have all the support you need here. Well-being is top of the agenda for us. We have increased our sort of spending on our well-being facilities, and there's great provision for that for students on the campus in a variety of different ways, and some of those are listed there. One of them is the Student Staff Liaison Committee. So students can sort of nominate people from their course to represent them, to liaise directly with academics, to bring up any academic issues or any personal issues any students have. And that really helps our students work very tightly with their course, something, again, we're very proud of. And then just on a more practical level, coming to Exeter, you'll more than likely fly into London. We offer an airport pickup service. I was doing that last year. It's great fun. Hopefully you'll be doing it in the future. But yeah, it's a good thing to do to book onto that, and it just creates much less hassle for you. Straight onto a coach and we'll drive you down to Exeter, to your accommodation. So these are some of the things that help support our students. There's a quote there from a current student, Paridi from India, who's talking a bit about her recent experience, that the university were quite accommodating with our students in allowing students to fly back home if that's the best and safest option for them, so that they can study online in a flexible manner. We've also given over £1 million worth of funding to students most in need of additional support, during the time of coronavirus, and that's hardship funding, really. So students who perhaps, if they didn't receive the financial support from the University of Exeter, may not have been able to continue their studies. That's something we've been very proud to be able to help with. From a sort of like an overview, really, of the university and how we're organised, I guess you can see here that we have 6 what we call academic colleges. Okay, and I won't read them all out to you there. You can see what they are. If I was to highlight one and give you an example about that, the College of Medicine and Health, for example, doesn't just house medicine, the medicine program. It also houses things like nursing, medical imaging, nursing, medical sciences, sports and exercise, medical sciences, things like that. So within each of these colleges, there are dozens and dozens of different degree options to choose from. And I know, well, in fact, I don't know what many of you on the call will be interested in, but I imagine some of you will be interested in the business school. Some of you might be interested in studying medicine. I think with all programs, without going into detail on all of them, it's important to look at, obviously the entry requirements, we'll talk about this later. Also look at what do the university look for in a student. Now, with one thing I like to highlight with the College of Medicine and Health, and in particular the medicine program, is that in the UK, for example, for medicine, many of the Russell Group universities are very competitive for medicine. And in addition, the UK government set a cap to universities on the number of international students who can join medical schools. And at Exeter, there are 10 spaces, for example, available on our medicine programme, out of a total 218 spaces. And that will be a similar story at other UK universities for their medical schools. So it's just important to bear in mind when you're looking at your courses, how can you write and how can you set yourself up in the strongest possible way to give the best application and increase your chances to get enrolled into the university. I'm happy to take any questions about any program at the end in terms of that. So as I said earlier, we saw some stats at the beginning about the number of international students in the university. We've got about 6,600 students who are not from the UK, so international students, and they contribute a great deal to our community in Exeter. In fact, on that, it's worth noting that the population of Exeter is about 130,000, and about 30,000 of those are students and staff at the university. So it feels really very much like a university city in that sense. It's important students have things to do. I mean, at university life, I remember from my university days, it's yes about the academic life. It's also so much about what you can get involved in outside of university life. At Exeter, as you would have seen from the map earlier, we're very close to the coast. We've got loads of different societies you can get involved in, over 180 just in Exeter, Exeter campuses, for example. And I would encourage you to, in advance, maybe look at the societies that we offer and think about, what it would be like to join those as part of your university life. The University of Exeter is also one of the leading UK sports universities. If I was to highlight one sport in particular, rugby, in fact, also cricket, consistently ranked very highly in the Bucks League. And Bucks is the British Universities and Colleges Sports League. That's really important for us. And we offer also a range of sports scholarships and sort of performance bursaries, for example. And I'd encourage you, if you're interested in sport or represent at a regional or national level, then to look at our sport scholarship webpage. Straight onto our website, just search for sports scholarships. You'll see lots of information there. But of course, you don't have to be competing at a high level to join any of our sports clubs. It's a really good opportunity at university to try something new, to try new sports, and something to get involved in. We've invested very heavily in our sports infrastructure at the university, and it is something that perhaps stands us aside from many of our similar universities in the UK. Is the sport facilities that we have. And I'm going to tell you a bit about a virtual tour at the end, and that'd be a really good opportunity to have a look at what kind of facilities we have, etc. Some of the key highlights, I mean, lots of universities have similar things in terms of a very good digital infrastructure. Students are able to, check into their lectures, for example, through an app. There's an iExeter app where, for example, students can go on to find out where the free laundry machines are, washing machines and tumble dryers, where are they free at the moment. So lots of really cool things like that. The third bullet point there talks about our special collections. So, for example, one of our special collections would be the Daphne du Maurier collection or the William Golding collection. These are really famous authors. William Golding, for example, wrote Lord of the Flies. And our English department house very special collections from a range of different authors and literary figures. Everything from that to sort of just having state-of-the-art lab facilities in and across our departments, and in addition, sort of costume collections for drama, for example. It's just a couple of examples there. I mean, our library as well is open 24/7. It's got many more sort of digital resources than it has physical resources, and we have 1 million of those. So it's worth thinking about these things. I think when you're thinking about studying at university, start to ask yourself, what facilities will there be at this university that I can utilize for my course? With Exeter, whichever program you're interested in, go onto the program page on our website, have a look at what facilities it tells you about there. Because it would be a really important part of, the quality of your study. We're very proud at Exeter as well to have a really good careers provision. So we've got a careers zone. There's an image of that. It's our Stratum Campus, that one in the image. But but this is all about really adding value for students, helping them with things like CV building, employability workshops, interview practice and techniques, etc. This will happen throughout your degree. And this is something that you can sign up to as much of it as you like, really. I mean, the business school in particular has its own careers team. And in fact, every business degree at Exeter offers the opportunity to do a placement, an international sort of placement or a domestic placement, or indeed study abroad. We'll look at that in a moment. But what we find is that people who take work placements and utilize these careers sort of facilities, end up becoming more employable. They add value to their degree. And so we see that there's usually a higher rate of those people in employment or further study within 6 months of graduating from Exeter. Don't forget as well, you can also work up to 15 hours per week as a student, an international student in the UK. So many of our students would take up a part-time job at the university or in the city of Exeter. And don't forget, the city of Exeter is only about 25 minute walk away from the campus, 15 minutes depending where you are, some places. So that's quite an attractive thing to be thinking about as well, in order to sort of supplement your lifestyle at the University of Exeter. Here are some of the sort of key employers that visit us every year to our sort of careers fairs. Many of our graduates gone on to take placements with these large companies and indeed end up being employed by them. That's often a theme. A lot of the time it ends up that students who take a placement with these, or whoever you've got a placement with, in their placement year, they'll often have opportunities to join them on a graduate scheme upon graduation. While we're talking about work opportunities, etc., it's worth noting that in the summer this year, the UK are introducing what's called the graduate route. And this is a new sort of visa route for students who graduated at undergraduate level. I mean, there's a few eligibility criteria. You Google the graduate route and look at the government website about this, but it's pretty clear. I mean, it enables students to stay in the UK, to look for work at any skill level for 2 years, in order to help them sort of stay in the UK for longer to find employment and ultimately graduate level employment after that. But that really is quite an attractive option for students thinking of studying in the UK. And a number of other countries that aren't the UK, may have very different rules on how long you can stay for once you've graduated. So this is really something to look into and consider. As I said a moment ago, our programs, many of them offer a year abroad, study abroad option. For example, all of our business degrees offer that, as I said. It might be that we offer a professional work placement or what's called an internship elsewhere. Or the opportunity to study sort of at one of our partner institutions. You could see some of those partner institutions here. Now, clearly, we haven't listed in this slide all 200 or more partners that we have, but this just gives you a flavor about some of the partners we work with across the globe, and you can see that it's very much a global operation. We have many partners in Europe, and indeed a large number of partners outside of Europe as well, from Australia, New Zealand to the west coast of the USA, North America, many in Southeast Asia as well, as another example. So this is something to look into. If you're thinking, is this an option on my course? Look at the program pages to see what's there for you. We've got lots of accommodation options in Exeter. So international students at undergraduate level, if you're an accompanied undergraduate international student or unaccompanied postgrad student, you're guaranteed university owned and managed accommodation, provided that you applied by the deadline in that year. Which is great news for you. I mean, you also have the opportunity to select different preferences. So you would list sort of 1 to 6 or 7 what your accommodation preferences are, and then they would look to be allocated. And you can see some images there of some of our on-campus and off-campus accommodation. Important to note actually that about 75% of our accommodation is on the campus. And the other quarter is in the city of Exeter. And the accommodation in the city of Exeter is no more really than a 25-minute walk away from the campus itself. And so again, one of the benefits of studying in Exeter is that the accommodation is always very, very close to the campus you'll be on. And that's the accommodation in Exeter. We'll look in a moment at the accommodation we have in Penryn. We've got lots of new accommodation that's been built in the past year or two. So I'd encourage students who are thinking about living on campus to have a look at the options that you have. Just some images there of our sort of nice, shiny new accommodation blocks. In Cornwall, at our Penryn campus, the accommodation guarantee is there again for international and undergraduates and postgraduates, provided you apply by the deadline and meet those conditions. On-campus accommodation, there's a lot of it there. Or if you're off campus, there's a short bus ride away, and you tend to be living in a town called Falmouth. It's a really stunning sort of seaside town in Cornwall. It would be possible for me to talk about this for a very long time, but I'm conscious that there is so much more helpful information on our accommodation web pages. So if anyone wants to find out more about prices, contract lengths, how many people you'd be sharing a room with, for example, go onto our website and just type in our search box accommodation, and all of the information you'll need is there. When we think about living costs in the UK, I just want to flag this. I mean, when you get a visa to be a student in the UK, you'll need evidence that you can demonstrate you have sort of £1,015 per month. This is the current guidance for the 9 months of study in that year. It obviously varies according to your lifestyle. There are many sort of tools that you can use online. The student room, for example, has a tool that can help you figure out what the cost of living in different UK cities is. This is I've taken these from that website. This gives you a brief idea. About £800 a month to live in Exeter, roughly, depending on how much you spend on different things. Your accommodation, for example, it depends. If you go middle of the range, this is about right for you. And if you go at the most expensive end, obviously it's going to be a lot more. But this just highlights really some of the costs associated with living at university. Something to consider as well going forward. So yeah, further to that, we've got a number of scholarships. The key one for those of you that are undergraduate students or prospective undergraduate students are our Global Excellence scholarships. They're a range of full £10,000 or £5,000 tuition fees, discounts off your first year tuition fee. exeter.ac.uk/funding search is the place to check out all of these and to figure out what funding we might have available to help you in funding your study. While we're on the subject of funding, here's some of the fees. So, undergraduate, the fees really start at £18,800 for our business programs, for example. The most expensive course is of course medicine, Bachelor of Medicine, Bachelor of Surgery at £37,000 per year. But most of the courses are between sort of £18,800 to about £25,000. So I'd encourage you to have a look on our web pages for detailed tuition fee amounts, as it does vary, of course, by program. If we're looking at sort of academic entry requirements, let's have a look at a more relevant slide for you guys, being from South Africa, Zimbabwe. Typical entry requirement at Exeter, you can imagine, would be sort of 3 A's to 2 A's and a B for many of our programs. Some programs require 3 B's at A level, and the matric and the ZimSec equivalents are there. So bear that in mind when you're applying. If anyone has got any queries about their grades or what we would require for a specific subject, you can contact me, and my email's at the end. But this sort of details our general position on entry requirements, typical entry requirements for Exeter. Okay, so in terms of English language, there's QR codes again there that take you to the relevant pages, because we accept a number of different English language qualifications. But they really start at undergraduate from 6.5 overall on the IELTS with no less than 5.5. And for medicine, go right up to sort of 7.5 overall on the IELTS test. But again, I won't go into too much detail on this because there's very detailed information on our English language web pages. So please do check those out. And I just wanted to highlight really what our current student numbers look like from Zimbabwe, from South Africa. For Zimbabwe students, we're second most popular Russell Group UK university. and for South Africa, we're the sort of 5th and most popular university in England outside of Oxbridge, so outside of Oxford and Cambridge, for the Russell Group as well. You know, a really good number of students from South Africa, from Zimbabwe. We've seen today UCAS, the University and Colleges Admissions Service, have released some data this morning, actually, where I note, 17% increase in international applications this year from outside of Europe. And that's really positive. We've seen really good amounts of students continuing to want to study in the UK. And I think that's a really positive sign, not just for universities, but also for students who are considering coming to the UK. And that's because, universities in the UK are increasingly global and bastions of global and social mobility, and we're very proud of our international cohorts at Exeter. And you can see there, about 25% of our students at Exeter are international students. Some key things to bear in mind that are coming up. We've got some open days coming up, both undergraduate, that's the UG open days, or postgraduate, the PGT, postgraduate taught open days. You can see the dates there. Again, go onto the University of Exeter website and just type in open days. You'll see all of the options there. And also, while you're at it, have a look at the virtual tours. Given that unfortunately you can't come to meet me on the campus for me to give you a tour around, but what you can do at the moment is have a little virtual tour. Those have been developed in the last few months, so they're all sort of up-to-date images of the campus, but they also enable you to go in to see exactly what facilities we have in our engineering department, in our drama department, in our medicine department. So please do utilize the virtual tours as well to get a flavour of what the campus is like. Given that you can't be here in person, you can start to imagine what it might be like in Exeter through those virtual tours. I'm conscious of time. I don't want to go on forever about it. I want to take your questions, have a conversation with you. So I'm going to finish there. Importantly, here is some information to get in contact with me. So exeter.africa@exeter.ac.uk is my email address. I'll be very happy to take any questions you have to that email inbox, whether or not it comes through now or in a few months' time. Obviously, Christina, my colleagues at Global Education, will be delighted to take any questions you have as well. But there's a QR code there to take you to that form that I said about at the start. So give you a moment to think about scanning that, and then I'll stop sharing my screen. And Christina, I guess there's some questions that I can start with answering.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Taylor. That was a really good presentation. Some really cool facts about how Exeter came about and their accreditation and everything. I'm just going to share my screen with our contact details, and then we'll get right into questions. Okay, so here are our Global Education's details. You're more than welcome to pop us a mail or contact us via telephone. We will be more than happy to assist you with any further questions you have about the University of Exeter, and we can put you in touch with Taylor. Okay, we've got a question from an anonymous attendee asking, do you offer social work as a degree, as an undergraduate degree?
Okay, thanks for the question, anonymous attendee. It's actually a good question. I mean, the short answer, I guess, is no. We don't have an undergraduate degree titled social work. But what's important, I guess, if you're thinking about studying at a university, it's worth noting that the course itself might not be titled social work. There might be some courses, even for example in nursing, where there'll be a lot of content or a lot of modules that focus on things like social work. So different programs offer different modules that might be relevant to your interest as well, but just they might be titled differently. So it's worth having a think about some broader areas it might be interested in, to see if within those programs there's an opportunity to specialize in social work, for example. But I think at Exeter probably there aren't many of our programs that would have lengthy sort of content on social work, but it's a really good question. Thank you. Yeah, Liza, I can see, has a question as well, so I'll tackle that one as well. So thanks for the question. So can international students study nursing? Well, the answer is yes. So UK universities accept applications from international students for nursing. Obviously, their eligibility criteria. I mean, for our nursing program, for example, it's a 4-year nursing degree. It's an integrated master's degree, undergraduate level, but you come out with a master's degree qualification. But yeah, we accept international applications. And will they do their practical with the NHS? So Lisa, it depends really on the university in question. I mean, at Exeter, there'll be a lot of clinical environment work for international students in nursing. And much of that will be co-delivered with the NHS and the university. So yeah, the NHS play a huge role in delivering practical elements to nursing courses across the UK. Some more so than others, I guess. What would be really helpful for any students who are interested in, finding out about what the practical elements of a nursing degree or a medical degree would look like, is to look again at the breakdown of the modules offered, and that will tell you a bit about how much time we'll be spending in a clinical environment, and where that will be, who it will be with, for example.
Perfect. Thank you, Taylor. We've got another question from Raphael. He's asking, could you please briefly discuss how the SID help desk is assisting students during this COVID?
Cool. Thanks, Raphael, for the question. That's a really good question. So for everyone listening, the SID desk is a feature at Exeter, and it stands for the Student Information Desk. Now, the Student Information Desk helps students in a number of ways. They are really the first port of call for students for any questions they have. It might be something to do with a course change. It might be, a module change, anything really, accommodation questions, fees questions. The Student Information Desk have been helping in a very practical sense, helping to deliver and, hand out PPE to students, helping to arrange, reschedule, exam timetables, and everything from rearranging the timetables to actually rearranging the exam halls and getting those set up and ready in a safe way. So they help in a number of ways. They also, when queries from students come through to the SID desk, they will be able to point the question to the relevant teams. So, for example, if someone is struggling, so let's give you an example. I had a student that was trying to contact me, or the university's sort of Africa team during lockdown. She was worried that because she's going to have to self-isolate back in our second lockdown, that she wouldn't be able to access sort of food and medicine. And the SID desk point those queries to us, and we're able to alleviate his concerns. For example, letting them know that food will be included and delivered to their door. The university were helping to collect medication from local pharmacies for students, for example. So the SID desk, in short, play an absolutely pivotal role in normal times, let alone in COVID-19 times, to help our students. Really good question, Raphael. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Taylor. I see we're getting another question here. It's us, another anonymous attendee. She's asking, you mentioned the placement year. What kind of work does this include? And is there any more information regarding this?
Thanks for the question. So the placement year, I guess it really depends. I mean, one thing to highlight with our placement years, or you'll often see it referred to as WIE, and that stands for with industrial experience programs, is that we do ask of the students to do quite a lot of the legwork in terms of finding their placement themselves. There's a really clear and obvious reason why we do this. I mean, you've seen from my slides that, yes, we host 2 or 3 careers fairs every year, and we have a really solid careers team. But we ask the students to do a lot of the legwork because it's very important in their professional development to be able to network with employers, with companies, etc. Just on a practical and employability level, gaining those skills will really help students. When your question asked about what kind of work does it include, the slide actually showed listed a number of the large, what we might call blue chip firms in the UK, PwC, large L'Oreal, Johnson & Johnson, those kind of companies. So many of the opportunities will be in large scale companies in the UK. If the student wants to go down that route and end up on a graduate scheme after they graduate. Some students, however, will decide or might have an existing connection with a smaller business or a more niche business or company, and they're very welcome to establish a partnership with those companies. So the student has a lot of flexibility in terms of what kind of work it includes. It's worth noting as well that in internships, if you take a placement year or a WIE with industrial experience year, they are salaried roles at these companies. And if we ask about what kind of salaries they would be, and they would really range between about 15 to 16,000 GBP, British pounds, up into about 52,000 pounds. I think it was the highest salary that a student of ours had on their placement. And so those opportunities come up depending on the students' sort of legwork in conjunction with the support from the university. But what Exeter won't do is say, we absolutely will find you a placement immediately with the company that we think suits you, because we know that students should be a student-led kind of process.
Perfect. Thanks, Taylor. That did answer the question. She's also asking, what is the student life at Exeter?
Okay, great question. Yeah. So I mentioned a little, I think when we think about student life, you have to think about the city itself. We talk a lot about the university, but student life is about what's it like to live, I guess, as a student in this city. I talked about Exeter being a smaller city compared to a number of UK cities, about 130,000 people in Exeter specifically. And I'm talking now about the Stratum and St Luke's campuses, which are in Exeter. The student life, I'd much prefer that students look at the testimonials from our current students on our websites, look at the videos they give. But there's a broad range of things for our students to do. I talked about the sports clubs, the societies that students can get involved in. Being close to the coast, students can also spend their own time, utilising that. We've got a number of beaches nearby and a number of moors, for example. So whatever a student is interested in doing outside of their academic life, they have a chance to do that with Exeter. We're not in the middle of a massive city, a sprawling sort of metropolis. We're quite a relatively small city, and so that opens up a lot of opportunities in terms of student life. And then I just want to highlight that if you're a student thinking about one of our programs at the Penryn Campus in Cornwall, very important difference here in terms of student life. There are far fewer students studying at that campus. It's a smaller campus. And also the lifestyle offered in Cornwall is quite a lot different. So it's worth looking on our website to see what current students are saying about what life is like there. What I'll do is I'll just very quickly put a link. I don't have the name of the student that asked that question, but in the chat I'll put a link to our student life page, which will detail a lot more which give a lot more details than what I could give right now. But hopefully that helps to answer your question.
Perfect. Thanks, Taylor. There's another question asking where they can find out more about fees. So if you have a link regarding all the fees, you can just pop it into the chat as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, bear with me. I'll just get the student fees and funding page. And on this page, it will give you detailed information about each program and what the programs cost.
Perfect. Thank you. Then we have another question asking, do you offer an honours year as students in South Africa complete a 3-year bachelor's degree and then want to come and complete their honours year at Exeter? Is this possible?
So I guess the question there is, if a student's completed 3 years honours degree in South Africa, can they then study at Exeter?
A 3 years bachelor's degree.
A 3-year bachelor's degree, yeah. In short, in the first instance, we would be looking for students to have completed a 4-year bachelor's degree in South Africa. And on a case-by-case basis, really, depending on the attainment and the quality of grades that the student receives, if a student has completed, a first year of a degree at a South African university, and then we can consider that for direct entry onto our programs. But that's really on a case-by-case basis, and we'd look into that and we welcome applications from students in that position. But I think first and foremost, we would be looking for students to have completed a 4-year bachelor degree in South Africa. I think I've answered that question, hopefully.
Perfect. Thank you, Taylor. Then we've got another question from Raphael asking, is racial discrimination anything that students need to worry about while both on campus and off campus?
Well, thanks, Raphael. I mean, that is clearly an incredibly important question on a broader sense, actually, in the world at the moment. We've seen very sadly in the news, examples of racial discrimination against international students in the UK. Which is something that the University of Exeter and universities across the UK and indeed the world completely condemn and find disgusting. I think a really practical answer to your question is that in Exeter, given that it's a much smaller city, perhaps than some of the larger, more well-known cities in the UK, like all UK cities and like all cities across the world, we often see isolated incidents of racial discrimination. That is, these are isolated and sort of, things that are taken extremely seriously by the university. We've got a very clear reporting mechanism for any instances of racial discrimination at university. And that reporting sort of system involves, university senior management staff as well as the Students' Guild, so student-led representatives there to help with that. Is it something you should worry about? Honestly, I would say no, and it would be very helpful if we had a current student talk to us about this, and that's something perhaps we can do another time. But yeah, the honest answer is probably no. The University of Exeter is a university like all others in the UK. There are isolated incidents that will be taken very seriously, but overwhelmingly, our international student community feel very supported and very much part of the community at Exeter. So thank you for that question. Hopefully I've answered that. I'd be very, very keen to speak to you further about that if you want more details about how we look at those, etc. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Taylor. Then we've just got another question that's come in asking, how has the intake of international students been affected by COVID and the travel restrictions? Would you say it's less or more competitive currently?
Well, thanks for the question. There's a couple of points to tackle here, I think. I said a bit in my presentation, actually, this morning. UCAS, the University and Colleges Admission Service, have released data that shows there's actually been an increase for 2021 applications compared to 2020, a 17% increase in international applications to the UK. To Exeter in particular, we've seen a really steady and good number of international students enrolling with us this year. In fact, at the business school, at postgraduate level at the business school this year, there was excellent numbers of international students enrolling with us. So, it hasn't actually seemingly affected the amount of students enrolling. It's worth noting that a number of our international students are currently not in Exeter, and they'll be studying at home across the world online. But unlike a number of other countries, the UK has remained has kept its borders open for international students, and so it's been logistically possible for them to come to the UK to study. And that wouldn't have been possible, for example, in Australia. Unfortunately, students there were unable to enter Australia for study. Does it mean it's more competitive or less competitive? We're seeing it's about the same at the moment. I think it's important to note that, year on year, we tend to receive the same or very similar number of applications, and we make, a similar number of offers. The chances of getting an offer at Exeter are actually fairly good. We receive undergraduate, we receive about 35,000 applications every year for about 6,500 spaces. But we make offers to just over 25,000 of those applicants. And that's because, a number of those applications won't be putting Exeter as their first or second choice or firm or insurance choice. And they might change their mind, etc. So, I don't think it should be anything you should be worrying about being more competitive. Also, we've seen a number of students from last year who are unsure about whether or not they should come to the UK to study have what we call deferred their place, meaning they are likely to, instead of join us last September, likely to join us this September. So a number of those spaces are already there. But importantly, if the University of Exeter makes you an offer and you meet the conditions and you want to study at Exeter, then ultimately the bottom line is still the same, and that your place would be honoured if you're made an offer and you meet the grades and a personal statement, etc. Good question though. Thank you.
Thank you, Taylor. That was well answered. We've got a question regarding sports from Luke. He says that you mentioned rugby being quite a big sport at Exeter. Could you possibly speak a bit more about this?
Yeah, I'll do my best. Yeah, I've been speaking quite a lot actually recently with our colleagues in the sports team. I'm a rugby fan myself as well. So I've been sort of aware about Exeter's reputation as a leading rugby university in the UK for quite a while. I mean, you might be aware, Exeter, the city of Exeter has an incredibly successful rugby team with the Exeter Chiefs. Exeter Chiefs have very strong links with the University of Exeter, or EURFC Rugby Academy. For example, the players and staff from the Chiefs are often involved with the training for our students in the EURFC. Exeter University Rugby Football Club, RFC, it tends to be in the top 1 or 2 across the Bucks League for rugby. There are several different squads to be involved in, and so for our first team, for example, there'll be sort of trials to get into that, and it's very competitive. A number of our players in the first team will be representing at national, international level. A couple of alumni of ours being Henry Slade, current England international, Jack Maunder, Exeter Chiefs international, Sam Skinner, Scotland. Last year, there's a guy called Lashai who's now playing for Georgia. A lot of these students as well, depending on what level they compete at, will be entitled for some kind of support, and that might be a scholarship, or it might be some financial support in terms of support with conditioning, strength and conditioning training, use of our ADC, which is our Athlete Development Centre, which is a gym in Exeter EURC just for performance athletes. So we have a number of different performance sports, for example. What I'm going to do is send you a link to our pages about that, where it's got some detailed information. So bear with me a sec while I get that link. Here we go. So list of clubs. I'm going to send through the link to a list of our sports clubs here. That's a more broad and general link. Click through into rugby. There's contacts there you could get in touch with. Keith Fleming, a director of rugby at Exeter. There's his email address there. You'd be able to contact him and ask any questions. Alternatively, drop me an email with your questions, specific questions about our rugby provision, and I'll contact our assistant head coach, Rich Hodges, and put you in touch with him. But yeah, that's a broad overview, but my colleagues will be able to talk more about that. Thank you.
Perfect. Just regarding going back onto the rugby topic, another question: do you have to attend the university to be a part of the rugby club?
Yes, yeah, you do. So you'd have to be a current Exeter student to be involved with EURFC. You'd have to be enrolled, and yeah, whether or not you're part of the first team or the fifth team, you would need to be an enrolled student at Exeter. Good question.
Perfect. Then another sports question is netball offered?
Yeah, netball is offered as a sport at Exeter, and if you just look in the chat there's a link to our list of sports clubs. Netball's there. It gives an overview of netball. It's got a contact for the club captain of netball, and that's a current student who's the captain of netball. Just drop them an email with any questions you have. They'll be delighted to hear from you. Yeah, so yes and yes.
Perfect, thanks. Then we've got our last question for the evening, asking how do the scholarships and financial aid work?
Okay.
Requirements and
yeah. Thanks for that. So for the I'm going to talk just about global excellence scholarships here. There was a link and a website link to our sort of funding search in my original slides, and that's exeter.ac.uk/funding search. That will enable you to find out about which financial support packages or scholarships you would be entitled to. But if I just highlight one, which would be the Global Excellence Scholarship, the the Global Excellence Scholarship is for undergraduate level. It's for students who are demonstrating the equivalent typically of 3 A's or 2 A's and a B at A level. And the equivalencies are on our webpage for that. So it's largely an attainment-based scholarship, students who are performing quite well academically. It will be offered in a variety of ways. So it might be a £5,000 discount on your first year tuition fees. It might be a £10,000 discount, or it might be a full tuition fee scholarship for the first year of fees. It requires a separate application, the details of which are on our funding webpage. That application would be about a 300-word statement about, and actually you would need to address 4 very specific questions, which is really important to very much structure your answer in according to those 4 questions that are detailed on the site. But yeah, things about like why, what you would do with the funding, why it would be important for you to receive that funding. You'll also find that for Global Excellence scholarships, the requirements for the scholarship for the business school are slightly higher. So whereas it would normally be AAB at A level or equivalent, we would, for the business school, look for the equivalent of A star AA at A level. So yeah, worth bearing in mind. It's a really good question though. I mean, there are a number of scholarships that you probably wouldn't be aware of even existing, which is worth looking at. And there are quite a number of scholarships for postgraduate students as well. And these vary and change, you know, month by month. For example, there's a recent scholarship available, not for South Africa or Zimbabwe, but for another country, because an alumni of Exeter has donated a fund to support students applying to certain countries. And it may be that those exist already for our South African and Zimbabwean students. So yeah, have a look on the funding search, because it will throw up every bit of funding that might be available to you. And it's worth bearing in mind, you know, they receive a lot of applications, and it might be that on this occasion there isn't any funding available, but it's worth just keeping your eye on it, just keep checking to see what's there, see how we can support you.
Awesome, thank you, Taylor. That seems to be it with questions for this evening.
Okay.
Thank you so much for your time and your presentation.
No worries at all. Yeah, go for it.
Sorry, I said, if anyone has any more questions that you'd like to ask, please feel free to pop us a mail or phone call. We'd be more than happy to assist you and put you in contact with Taylor if you would require his assistance.
Yeah, thanks very much. And just for everyone left, I've put my email address there in the chat if helpful. But other than that, thanks very much for joining to speak with me, and thanks to Christina Global Education for having me.
Thank you, Taylor. Good evening, everyone. Cheers.
Good night. Thanks, guys.
Bye.